I have a condition. I have a medical condition so severe that it was one of the reasons that I retired from my corporate career. This guy in the front still texting. He's like, oh my God, if she's going to go there. It gets worse. So before I tell this story, I should probably get a read of the room. How many actuaries do we have out there? Raise a hand. Oh yeah, we got some. How many underwriters? Any marketing? Nobody. They're like, no, we're not going to that thing. Any podophobes? Fear of feet? Oh good, we're going on. So this condition I have, it's called Morton's Neuroma. And Morton's Neuroma is basically a pinched nerve. And when I first had this, I said, how could I have something like this? And they said, well, there's basically two ways you can have that. It's mostly from pointy shoes, dress shoes, and from running. And I'm clearly guilty of both of those. And you might be saying, why the hell are you wearing pointy shoes on the stage then? I just put them on. I want to look taller and thinner for you. Authenticity most of the time. So I did like most people. I quit my job because I got rid of the shoes. But I still love to run. And so I sought out care. And without getting too personal, I went to the doctor and I had cortisone shots. And then when he said, you're cut off from the cortisone shots, you've had too many, we started another therapy, which I'm not going to tell you because it's kind of gross. And I was telling my friend one day, we were running, and she knows about my injury, but I was, we had a long run, so you run out of things to talk about. And I was telling her about it, and how, it pinches, and a lot of it's from the pinching side to side. And she said, do you know that there's like 30 ways you can tie your shoe? I did? You guys know this? I learned, over, through. I said, no shit, I had no idea. So I went back, and I retied my shoes. And I retied my right shoe, which is my bad foot, and I gave it more space. And I went out for a run that day, and I literally said to myself, I haven't felt this great in forever. And the reason that I painfully make you go through a story about my feet is this is what we do. We get complex problems, and then we try to solve them with complex solutions. Not just for our toes, but for our life and for our business. Right? We're all so hardwired. We're so smart, and we're going, and we're AI, and we're agile, and every problem that comes up, we throw a robust solution at it. And I'm here to argue that sometimes it's simpler than that. Sometimes it's about just tying your shoe in a different way, about loosening it up a little bit. So I'm going to talk to you about three things today. First, I'm going to talk about what I think are probably the two most statistically significant issues that we have in the corporate workplace. Second, I'm going to try to convince you why authenticity and empowering authenticity in the workplace can actually be the biggest cure for these two massive issues. And then lastly, most importantly, I'm going to tell you what I think you can do, because you can all be part of this army as well. So before I go in this next section, are there any underwriters for behavioral health in the room? It's hard to see you guys out there. I see somebody with their phone. They might just be bored, but maybe raised hand. I'm just here to warn you, the next part is very depressing. So the two issues I'm going to talk about are first, I'm going to talk about gender diversity. And you're like, yeah, I knew it. Woman on the stage. I didn't think it would take her this long to get there. We have a gender diversity issue. And we all know this. And I could throw a lot of statistics at you, but I think one of the most powerful, did you know that there are more CEOs named John than there are women CEOs? And I know some of you are like, well, John's a really common name. We're here in the US. Everybody knows John, Jonathan, I know all of it. You can replace it with Dave as well. And I'm sure a lot of other names. It's ridiculous, right? And we know that it's not only ridiculous and depressing, but we know that more diverse teams yield results. There's so much data out there. So one was 3 big companies came together, and they looked at the profits, and they found that more diverse workforces yielded 140% higher profits. Enough to tell you that's something we need to solve. So next, the second big issue, big chunk of our issue, is that our employees are unengaged. So Gallup does a poll every year. This number is a little better. It used to be worse. And it was funny, I was putting this together, and a friend was over, and I was sort of going through the construct of my presentation, and she said, well, but what does unengaged actually mean? And at first I thought, oh, let me look at the report. And I was like, no, it means people don't give a shit about what they're doing at work. And if you think that's not a problem, you got a problem. When people give a shit, they do a lot better. And we also have data that shows that more engagement, equals better results. And I have to say, this study that I looked up, the top quadrant companies actually have 21% higher profitability. But I didn't think that was depressing enough, so I put that the bottom have lower by 21%, and I don't think the math really works out. But you get my point. They've tracked it, and when people are unengaged, the company suffers. So let's talk a little bit about current solutions. Oh, before we do that, actually, because I know I saw some hands raised, some actuaries. Are there any finance folks in the room? They're like, show me the numbers. All right, let's break it down. So I looked it up. There's 5.1 million Johns in the US alone. So if you take that, you multiply it by the 64% that are unengaged, what do you get? You get a really shitty, incomplete bathroom. All the actuaries are like, it's 3.264 million people. It's a problem, no matter how you do the math. Today's solutions. So we're working on it. We're going to the doctor. If you go back to, sometimes when you have a bad toe, you have to go to the doctor. We're, working on women's issues. But I dare to argue, oftentimes the solution is segregation. That's the kind of crap that we figured out in like the 60s and 70s. It wasn't good. It wasn't working, right? Like, bring everybody together. But we segregate, and we don't always talk about the right things. And then we have leadership training, which again, I equate to the doctor. I think, you need that leadership training. I actually have examples of where we did incredible leadership training, and it really changed the company. At the same time, I sort of think about, like, if you were trying to take down a dictator, right? Maybe back in the, 30s or 40s, you could go try to talk to them and train them, or instead you can empower an army to defeat them. And that's how I feel about this stuff. That a lot of this is about enabling you, enabling this room of people, the army, to stop the BS, to stop the check-the-box women's conference, and stop the leadership books that we just can't always stay with. So, how are we going to solve these? So first, I want to talk about the women's issue, actually, before we go to this. I've been so privileged to be part of some of the best women's leadership groups there are. And I learned a lot. And I met incredible women, and I got empowered and enough tools in my toolbox to really power through. At the same time, in many of those groups, we're never talking about what I think is the real issue. And the real issue and the reality is the best talent is opting out. I know this because I have friends and colleagues, even ones that I've seen here, who are at the top of their game. And they say, yeah, but that next level, that's going to have me compromise my family, my values, my morals, my soul. And you see what we see in so many women, and others too, but really we see that we have to change ourselves to do the job. And what I learned and what I want to empower is to be able to teach them that you can change the job. That through using a concept of being your authentic self, which is what I did in my last role. I decided not to play the games, not to have to look like the dude before it. No offense, I like you dudes, you're good dudes. But you can do it your own way. And that's where the authenticity power is in issue number 1. Now we can go on to issue number 2. So people that don't give a shit about their job, it's a problem. And there's an incredible study. It's called the Neuroscience of Trust. It's an HBR study. They did it several years ago. And they actually, it's so credible. They took blood from people, and they actually monitored the levels of oxytocin, which is known to be the highest level hormone that's released when you trust. And they actually studied the impact of trust. And trust made engagement scores rise. So let's talk about, okay, what are the components of trust? There's also a separate professor from Harvard, separate from this study, that does a wonderful TED Talk and talks about the components of trust. And those are logic, empathy, and authenticity. And obviously I'm very excited, right? And it just happens to be at the top of the triangle, which is wonderful. So let's talk about why authenticity. Why do I think that's the silver bullet? Why is it not logic? Why is it not empathy? First of all, authenticity is simple. It's extremely simple. But you could argue that empathy is kind of a simple concept as well. Logic's a little bit more about, sort of how you portray things. More importantly, authenticity is contagious. It is one of the most contagious things that you can ever put out there, other than the stomach bug, which is horrible, which my colleagues actually had this week, and I sat by him. I can't believe I did that. And let me give you an example. We had a leadership conference last year when I was still leading PayFlex, and actually this is kind of funny. We were prepping for the closing. They had me prep like days ahead, which is I'm not really good at doing. But I said, okay, I'll do it. I will get prepared. I usually like to sort of wing it, especially after the long day, but we'll prepare. And they wanted me to show this video. And the video was all about the dancing man. Have you ever seen the dancing man who's dancing on the hill, and then nobody's dancing, and then everybody else starts dancing? Anyone? Yeah, it's sort of well known, even though it's definitely a B-rated sort of shot. And they said, but are you going to show the video? And I said, oh, that's right, you sent me the video. I love the video. But I'm just going to dance. And they're like, what? I'm like, well, no, I'm just going to dance. And then we're going to sort of replicate. And they said, but have you seen the video? It has this amazing message. It talks about the leader and how the lone nut and everybody follows. And I said, yeah, but I haven't seen it in a while. Let's look at it again. So they brought up the video, and we started watching it. And about 30 seconds in, I said, stop. Okay, I've seen enough. Look, with all due respect, the people are not following him because he's a leader, and they're following him because he's drunk. And the rest of them are drunk too. And I'm going to just instead dance. And I swear to God, we were sitting in a room, there was 4 other people, and they just looked at me like, and I said, okay, stop. Why are you so hesitant? What's the concern? I said, is it A, that you're worried we're going to have this amazing conference that's all going to end up with hell in a handbasket because I danced? Or is it B, you're worried about me making an ass of myself? And they said, well, we're not worried about the first one. Okay. Perfect, it's settled, I'll dance. And time came, and we had an incredible 2 days, and we cued the music, and I got on the stage, and let me tell you, a little secret. I knew it was only going to take like 5 seconds. I knew the woman right in front. I could tell you exactly who it was that was going to be the first one to get up and dance. And it wasn't 5 seconds. It wasn't 30 seconds. The entire room was dancing, and the energy was electric. But authenticity, it doesn't have to be on the stage. It doesn't have to be like now. It doesn't have to be in that event. Authenticity can be done in such the simplest ways. And let's talk about what is authenticity. So a lot of people are like, I know what authenticity is. I know, be yourself. Yeah, at home, not at work. I still want people to be themselves, but I argue that the definition of authenticity in the workplace is richer than that. It's really about 3 main components. It's about the use of storytelling. It's about the use of humility. And then for some reason, it's about humor. My slide's not working. Now, I don't know most of you. I think I saw a couple people I know. How many people feel like they could trust me? Raise your hand. I can see you. Oh, this guy's like, You're still like, you got the shoes, but you say you're authentic, but they're killing you. That's what I'm doing in this presentation. I'm using the power of telling stories to captivate your brain in a different way. I'm using humility to tell you, how short and fat I am. Well, I didn't say that, but how bad I am at math. Did you guys know I was an actuarial failure? Failed, 0 exams. I'm using humor for the few of you that are laughing. And that's the power. You see, people respect authority, but they follow authenticity. And that's where we need to get. So I would argue that authenticity is this superpower that takes down those two statistically significant issues. That it's the simplest math equation you've ever seen. It kills 2 birds with 1 stone. But I know this is a very analytical group. And I know you're probably thinking, I'm kind of putting it together. I got a little lost at the 5.1 million Johns because I thought it was 3 million. But, I can see that, bringing it out, But I wish there was proof. I wish there was maybe some leader that led a company and they actually powered authenticity and the results were there. Then I'd believe her. Guess what? I did that. I'm proud to say it's tough for us women to do this, to boast, to be forthright with our accomplishments. But I was the CEO of PayFlex for 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And in that time, we took a company that was flat in earnings for at least 4 years, and we tripled them. Our culture index scores went up 12 percentage points. Yes, that's percentage points, actuaries, not 12%. And by empowering authenticity, by doing simple things that made people feel comfortable, to give me their ideas, to walk into a room and make a contribution, to put on their out of office that says, hey, I'm taking a real vacation, to be able to set up meetings with their teams how they saw fit. We saw authenticity spread like wildfire. There are days I would go to my team meetings. We always started our team meetings, 10 minutes, slow down and inspire. That's all we did. These were my executive team. But we would spend 10 minutes every week just telling stories, of our team and the things they did. And, I would have a team member come in and they're like, we aren't doing huddles on Wednesdays anymore. We're doing cuddles and we're talking about culture. And, somebody just told me they lost 150 pounds. And it spread like wildfire. And it started with me, but it kept going because of my employees. So, how can you help? So we go back to my shoes. Don't worry, I'm not going to show any of the actual feet. We're going to stick with shoes. And as I thought about my shoes, the startups in the room, I can see at least the yellow ones. That's a smart idea. I forget your name, but it was a very good presentation. Nice job. Your laces are largely, you're like, I don't know what she's talking about. We're as authentic as they come. We're just getting shit done. But it won't always stay that way if you don't hold on to it. You have to make it part of your strategy. It's so easy to say you have it, and then you grow, and you get board meetings, and the board says you got to bring in some stuffy insurance executives so it looks good, and they know what they're talking about, and clearly, and then all of a sudden the caste system is formed. Make it part of your strategy. Talk about it on a regular basis. Call it whatever the heck you want, but be real and focus on it. That's how you're going to attract the talent. And insurers, let's be honest, your shoelaces look a little bit more like my right foot. Or my left. What is that? That's my right. They're tangled. They're wired. Look, I did it. I was there 22 years. You get big. You get tangled. You get caught up. I got caught up at times. Oh, well, I have a communications director, and they want me to do a fancy blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, wait, it doesn't have to be that way. I wrote all of my own communications. Even when we had massive corporate communications where everybody had the fancy little template, little face, not me. Because I knew my team knew my voice, and nobody could replicate my voice. So insurers, as you think about it, as leaders, stop impressing your boss. Start impressing the people around you. Be yourself. Act with humility. Tell stories. Whether that's stories of home or stories when you're leading a meeting, connect with them through the power of humility and humor and storytelling. If you're individual contributors here and you're like, I'm just going to have to wait for it all to come down. These guys, they're all buttoned up. No. I'm here to tell you that inspiration is a circular reference. There was not a day that didn't go by where my team wasn't inspiring me. And it's the little things. I would catch on to them. Like I said, one person sent out of office, right? How many do the out of office? I will be out of the office for the next 3 days. I will be checking my email as periodically as I can, but I might actually take a little bit of time to not work. Right? And we had somebody that just said, look, taking a killer vacation off of the family, sayonara, see you later. I don't know what they said, something like that. Do you know how quickly that spread? People would get it, and they're like, dang, that's cool. That sounds fun, and it feels empowering. So it's not about the big stage and the dancing. It's not about the leadership. It's about everything you can do. Because I will tell you, even if that stuffy leader seems stuffy, they're looking at you, and they're inspired by you. And as you think about working with the startups, I know I've been there. You're like, well, it sounds cool, but we could really build it ourselves. I mean, our team is pretty big, and they can do this, and that's not really rocket science. You're not just buying them for the technology. You're buying for them for the culture. You're buying them like we have children to keep us authentic and humble, right? You're working with these startups to learn more than just about the technology. I encourage you to think about that. So I'll end with this. After all of this, how are you guys going to tie your shoes tomorrow? Thank you.